At 38,000 feet above the Atlantic Ocean, Air France Flight 447 entered a nightmare. What began as a routine overnight flight from Rio de Janeiro to Paris would become one of the most haunting aviation disasters of the modern era. This is the story of a highly advanced Airbus A330, a crew suddenly overwhelmed by confusing warning and a chain of events that turned deadly in just a few minutes. Air France Flight 447 departure Rio on June 1st, 2009, with 228 people on board. The aircraft was an Airbus A330, a modern long-haul jet, equipped with sophisticated fly-by-wire system and multiple layers of automation. Under normal circumstances, it was designed to make flying safer, more stable, and more predictable. But at that night, normal circumstances disappeared. As the aircraft crossed the Atlantic, it approached an area of intense convective weather. Towering storm clouds, turbulence, lightning, and high-altitude ice crystals were building ahead. From the outside, it was a dangerous environment. From inside the cockpit, it was about to become something far worse. Confusing. The first critical problem came from the aircraft's Pitot props. These sensors are responsible for measuring airspeed. When ice crystal obstructed them, the aircraft began receiving unreliable speed information. In a modern airliner, that matters immediately. Because once the system can no longer trust its speed data, automation begins to step back. And that is exactly what happened. The autopilot disconnected. The aircraft suddenly had to be flown manually. At the same time, the crew was confronted with warning, changing indication, and a rapidly increasing workload. This was no longer a simple weather deviation.
Wind shear, wind shear.
It had become a high-altitude system event, unfolding in darkness, in turbulence, and under pressure. One of the most important parts of this accident is understanding that the problem was not only technical, it was cognitive. The crew now had to interpret what the airplane was doing, what the instruments were telling them, and what actions were needed, all within seconds. And in aviation, when information becomes unreliable, confusion can spread faster than failure itself. As the flight control system diverted the aircraft transition away from its normal protection, the Airbus was no longer offering the same level of automatic envelope protection it normally would. That means the pilot still had control, but they also had less protection against dangerous flight conditions. Then came the deadly trap. At high altitude, the margin between overspeed and stall becomes narrow. If the aircraft slows down too much and the nose remains too high, lift begins to collapse. That condition is called a stall. And once a large jet enters a high altitude stall, recovery may be difficult unless the crew quickly recognizes what is happening and responds correctly. That recognition didn't come in time. Faced with unreliable airspeed indication and multiple alerts, the aircraft was flown into a sustained stall. Instead of returning to a safer altitude, it remained trapped in a condition from which recovery became less and less likely. The warnings were there, the danger was there, but the full picture was not understood soon enough. For nearly 4 minutes, the aircraft descended through the darkness over the Atlantic. A modern airliner is still structurally intact, but no longer under effective control. Then, Air France Flight 447 was gone. The loss shocked the aviation world, not only because of the number of lives lost, but because the aircraft itself represented the highest level of modern airline technology. People asked the same question again and again. How could this happen? The answer didn't come immediately. The wreckage lay deep in the Atlantic Ocean, and the black box were lost for a long time. Without them, the final minutes of the flight remained a mystery. But investigators didn't stop. When the flight recorders were finally recovered, they revealed the chain of events with devastating clarity. The Pitot probes had iced over. Speed indication became unreliable. The autopilot disconnected. flight control protection were reduced, and in the confusion that followed, the aircraft entered and remained in a stall. The black box didn't reveal a single dramatic explosion or one sudden catastrophic failure. It revealed something more unsettling. A sequence of small failures, human uncertainty, and breakdown in understanding at exactly the worst possible moment. Air France 447 changed aviation. It forced the industry to look harder at Pitot prop performance, high altitude manual handling, unreliable airspeed procedure, and stall recovery training. It reminded pilot, engineer, investigator, and airliners around the world that automation can support a crew, but it can never replace deep understanding. This accident became more than a tragedy. It became a lesson written in data, recovered from the bottom of the ocean. Air France Flight 447 showed us how quickly modern systems can become vulnerable when sensors fail, when protection are reduced, and when the human mind is pushed beyond clarity. And that is why we study it. Not only to remember what was lost, but to understand what must never happen again. This is the Black Box Files. Real data, real stories, real lessons. And in the next episode, we investigate another flight where the aircraft was not destroyed by a single mechanical failure, but by a chain of decision, warning, and missed chance to recover. A crew in crisis, a cockpit under pressure, and a final moment that still raises questions to this day. See you in the next file.